First.
All right, keep going now. Are you done?
Okay, so this next segment, you have to pay attention to the road. I feel like you're going to run into the bush.
Or run me into the bush.
I know, this is, you know.
All right, this
is not regulation.
Definitely not.
Okay, so you have to watch the road. Don't watch him, watch the road.
Oh, you're talking to me? I thought you were
Yes.
talking to them.
No, I was talking to you.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite curse word?
Yes. Oh, the police.
Oh. Here's where we go, guys. We're going to be so busted. So what? So the last question.
So inspiring others all the time.
I feel like
in the
yes,
way that
it's
the ministry does.
mentorship part. Yeah, definitely. I like how you drew that parallel. The last question is: if heaven exists, what would you like God to say when you enter the pearly gates?
Welcome, with a big smile.
You require a smile.
You asked me what I would like. Yes, what would I like? That's what I would like.
Welcome. Smile.
You're back. I don't know what.
You're back.
This is where you belong.
This is all.
That would go right back to the King's lyric.
Yeah.
All right, let's ask that question again so I can say
Okay.
that.
So.
Okay, I think we're done.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, well, I'll wrap it up. This is my job.
I thought
now. No.
Thanks everybody for joining Tina and me today.
No, it's
Tina's
my
a wonderful
job.
host, and while she struggles with this role, I think she manages to perform somewhat effectively.
Oh, thank you. And so for people who may not know, you are the Jack Felton Gold Medal Award winner for Lifetime Achievement. And one of the sort of criteria for the award is in the spirit of Jack, that he was a really great mentor and really gave back to the profession.
Yes, absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yes. So for example, there are now sources of what's called attribution data that enables people to make a connection between media that appears, earned media that appears in print or online, and the degree to which it influences people's behavior. They read an article, they click on that article to read it, and then after they click, they might go to a website to learn more about whatever's in the article. That can now be tracked in ways that are unobtrusive, that are very informative to the communicator, to help them understand the impact of their public relations activity on the business as a whole. Now, one last anecdote. Earlier in my career, I felt that everybody must measure. It's in every textbook. Everybody must measure. Everybody must set measurable objectives. They're just not telling me about it. And I was talking to an agency CEO in New York, mid-sized agency, whose clients you would definitely recognize as measurement-oriented companies. And what he revealed to me in passing was like an epiphany. He said, I would gladly forego being a proven success in exchange for never being a proven failure. And it dawned on me, this is the truth. This is why, it's not that people aren't telling me, it's that they're not even talking about it. So now I think this is changing, and certainly the work of the Institute fosters that kind of thinking, and more companies and communicators are measuring and using research to guide more data-informed decisions. I started my career at the New York Times in the newspaper business, and transferred over to public relations, working in for a PR service company, not a PR agency or not in public relations. But all my newsroom experience helped me help communicators target journalists and identify media sources, and that was the beginning of my career in public relations. Like I said, I didn't set out to do this, and it's nurtured me for decades. So I don't know that I've hit that highlight yet, but
what about like a moment you're really proud of?
I was very
in your
proud
career?
Of being recognized by my peers for the Jack Felton Lifetime Achievement Award. It put a lot of things in perspective for me. That all these things that I was doing, whether I knew it or not, had a purpose and had an effect, and people recognized that. Very gratifying.
So have you seen that movie Sliding Doors with Gwyneth Paltrow and some other person I don't know?
I saw it a long time ago when it was in the
Okay.
movies.
Yes. So there's a moment where she misses the subway,
Yes.
and they show like that span of her life and
Yes.
that sort of
And what
instance,
might have happened.
and what might have happened, and it was her like her life was drastically different in that sliding doors moment. Have you had a sliding doors moment or a pivotal moment in your career that could have drastically changed
Yes.
where you are today?
Earlier in my career, I had decided to make a change, and I had 2 offers at the same time. One of which paid more money, offered a longer-term contract, but it was something that I had already done, more or less. The other offer was for a lot less money, for a startup, very speculative, and my son was, I think, 1 month old. So a time when others might have chosen a less risky path. But I chose the more speculative. It only lasted a year, but I learned more in that year than I could have ever hoped to learn. And I've applied what I learned then throughout my career. So it was that moment. If I had taken what seemed like the safer choice, I would have been unemployed. That industry died within public relations, like press release, printing and mailing. It's not a thing anymore. Whereas I learned how to be a consultant at this marketing consulting firm and learned from those partners. And in fact, it was one of the senior partners whom I quoted earlier about approximately right or totally in the dark. That was a reference to him.
Favorite book or author?
My favorite author is Elmore Leonard. He's a crime and mystery writer.
Yes, old school.
Because whenever I stopped reading, for whatever reason, I'd need to jumpstart the cycle. And he would write a book a year until he died. And I would just always look forward to his books. Very simply written, easily digestible, engaging, would, get me through a book in a day. He died, so I've kind of dried out now. I haven't found somebody to replace him. But I love the genre. I started with I started with The Thin Man and Maltese Falcon, went into Raymond Chandler, and
Raymond Chandler is also a really
it's
great
like noir movies.
Yes,
These are the books that produce those movies.
I like Michael Connelly, who's inspired by Elmore Leonard and Ray
really?
Chandler. Yeah, and he's also a UF grad, so University of Florida graduate.
Oh,
And then he worked at the LA Times. He was a beat cop in LA, and it's like a very quick read and easy to
that type.
digest. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm reading more than ever.
Are you? That's
But
great.
all from my phone, all news, all the time. And it's
Can be a little depressing
it can
sometimes.
be.
You should try
can be.
like some quick fiction book to change that.
Yes.
So, what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Other than my own, the ministry.
The ministry? Are you serious?
I think I have a knack for it.
You're not serious.
Next question. That's wrong. I proselytize all the time. You've heard me. Actually, when I was in the 10th grade, my mother was growing more and more concerned that I would amount to nothing. So she signed me up for this battery of tests, 3 days of tests, every sort of thing. Complete this sentence. When I think of my father, they're trying to find whatever it is, what geometric shape is this, or what is this equation?
Yeah.
Every kind of test. And at the end of it, they reveal, what you have, whether you have an aptitude and what that aptitude is. And the number one thing that came from them was the clergy, that I had. I was perfectly formed for a future in the clergy. And in a way, my work involves.
You feel like it's.
And it involves proselytizing, evangelizing for what we do.
I took a test, the ASVAB, and they said I should be a secretary. Yeah, and it was actually called the secretary.
Oh,
so
well, I had
I think
my
I
high
took
school.
notes really well.
I think one of the reasons my mother did this was because my high school guidance counselor suggested that an educational path that didn't reflect her version of my future. And unfortunately, at that time, I wasn't doing anything to reflect any brighter future than what he was forecasting. Anyway, this test.
So you're providing hope for people to say, people may I
Well,
have faith in you.
my
But
response,
then eventually,
they told me that my reading comprehension was in the 99th percentile, but way above average. And I turned to my mother and I said, you know, all I read are comic books and Mad magazine. So there really is hope for anybody.
that is, it's a good lesson. Any others?
Oh, I love all kinds of music. Being of my age, I'm kind of fixated in the 60s. So all those bands, I'm in a great Facebook group where people say things like, name the 5 best Beatles songs. Somebody gives an answer, and a guy will say, wrong, that's no better than number 17. And they seriously get into it.
And they debate it.
Yeah.
What is your favorite Beatles song?
Oh gosh, Day in the Life is something more than just a song to me.
That's nice, Mark.
One of those
Any
three is a
recommended? What's
a
one of
guilty
your
pleasure.
favorite recommendations for TV?
My favorite programs, to everyone's chagrin, is Turner Classic Movies.
Oh.
So whenever I'm watching or want to watch, and my kids or my wife come into the room, as soon as they see another black and white movie, they just turn around.
It's good to have alone time sometimes.
and I get plenty of it.
Oh, that's funny. So what is your favorite movie and why? Speaking of TCM.
My favorite movie is Grapes of Wrath, which I think it says a lot about
Steinbeck,
me.
do you think so?
I know that my my conservative friends think it's a communistic movie, but I love that movie for so many reasons. Put it home.
And one of the really interesting case studies that was in the Irreversible paper, they were all interesting, of course, but it was Southwest Airlines where they used like their Net Promoter Score or what people are saying about them to change the actual operations and making sure that flights are more on time and making sure that the first flight of the day is out, because that really had, there's a huge correlation between the Net Promoter Score and whether the first flight of the day left on time.
So what I found most compelling about that story was that originally Southwest Airlines knew that their Net Promoter Score was going down, which means general satisfaction about the company and its services was in decline. And they recognized that on-time performance was the key. They had just instituted longer routes, which have a greater tendency to be late. They had also acquired another airline that had lower performance in general. But now it was their brand. What was interesting to me was that the CEO recognized that this was a problem and organized a team to confront the challenge. Public relations was not a part of that team. They inserted themselves and were able to contribute essential information like the weather, which had not been countered, but you can get that from news. They also were able to represent their own customers' opinions, because through social media they were able to track whether people were really upset about it and how they expressed their dissatisfaction. So once public relations was integrated into the study, there was a more complete understanding of the problem, and Southwest was able to elevate its on-time performance by communicating internally the need for on-time performance beyond what anybody might have thought anyway. And so communications was a great way to first gather information that was essential, and then as a foundation to communicate to employees the importance of on-time performance and how they can affect performance, but also the attitudes of their customers.
And Linda Rutherford, she was our chair and now past chair, one of our first In a Car with IPR was actually at Southwest. So if you want to check out the listening center and to see some of how they do social, check out a previous In a Car with IPR episode. We've been doing the past we've done it I think 3 out of 4 times, like a research boot camp, where we teach people how to actually conduct research, evaluate surveys, and sort of best practices for what they do in the research, measurement, and evaluation space. And that's been very popular as well, and I hope informative.
It sure has. So think of it as a research 101 for communicators. There's something for everybody, and it informs those who are just getting started, and there's also something to learn for those who are more experienced. There's so many elements within the communications research mix. So some people might understand media analysis, want to know more about surveys. Some people might know about surveys, want to know more about integrated marketing and how research drives more fully integrated marketing and communications decisions. All of that's covered in the boot camp as well as in the main event. The boot camp is led by you and I, so we are representing an aspect.
Best instructors ever.
The highest standard.
Yes.
And we represent our own perspectives and our own experiences. In the following day, more peer-to-peer, that there are people in the practice who are speaking to people in the practice.
I feel like it's
Thank you for watching this episode of In a Car with IPR. Want to make a tax-deductible contribution to support this series and fund research in the profession? Please visit us at instituteforpr.org/contribute.